Meghan is livid. Harry has met someone who is his age, with whom he is in love, and who is in love with him.
It has been a whirlwind few months for Prince Harry, and none of it required speculation about secret girlfriends or hidden relationships. The real story is dramatic enough on its own. Between a major courtroom defeat, a bizarre 24-hour saga involving a Buckingham Palace invitation that was offered and then yanked back, an ongoing years-long fight over police protection, and a family rift that shows no clear sign of healing, the summer of 2026 has been one of the most eventful stretches of Harry's post-royal life. This is a rundown of what actually happened, based on reporting from outlets including NBC News, CNN, Euronews, the Associated Press, and People. Not speculation, not anonymous insiders claiming to reveal hidden truths, but documented, on-the-record events. A major legal defeat. The centerpiece of the summer was a High Court ruling on July 7, 2026, in Harry's long-running privacy case against Associated Newspapers Limited, the publisher of the Daily Mail, the Mail on Sunday, and Mail Online. This case had been years in the making. Harry, along with Elton John and his husband David Furnish, actors Elizabeth Hurley and Sadie Frost, former politician Simon Hughes, and Baroness Doreen Lawrence, had accused the publisher of unlawful information gathering, allegations that included phone hacking, tapping landlines, and blagging, a term for obtaining personal information through deception. Harry's legal team had described it as part of a broader campaign, spanning 2 decades, to hold the British tabloid press accountable. The verdict did not go the claimant's way. The UK High Court dismissed Prince Harry's privacy case against Associated Newspapers, and the publisher's spokesperson called the outcome an overwhelming victory and a magnificent vindication of the paper's journalism. According to reporting from The Conversation, presiding Judge Matthew Nicklin found that the claimants had failed to prove their allegations, and every one of the 97 specific claims of unlawful activity brought before the court was dismissed. The judge reportedly noted that Harry's evidence at times moved beyond factual testimony into argument about the broader issues at stake. CNN's coverage of the ruling captured just how costly this loss was. The Duke of Sussex and 6 other claimants lost the high-stakes case after failing to prove their allegations against Associated Newspapers Limited, with the judge stating that although the allegations were serious, suspicion alone was not sufficient grounds for the court to rule in their favor. A media law specialist quoted by CNN pointed out that even though Associated Newspapers technically won, nobody really came out ahead financially, with reported legal costs in the range of £40 to £50 million. This was an extraordinarily expensive trial for everyone involved. Whether Harry and his fellow claimants will attempt an appeal remains an open question, since any appeal would require permission from the court rather than proceeding automatically. It's worth noting this wasn't Harry's only tabloid-related legal fight, and not all of them have gone against him. He previously won a significant victory against Mirror Group newspapers, publisher of the Daily Mirror, Sunday Mirror, and Sunday People, over allegations of voicemail hacking and other unlawful information gathering dating back to between 1996 and 2011. Harry was one of roughly 100 claimants in that case, but he became the first senior British royal in over a century to appear as a witness in court when he testified in June 2023. The High Court ruled in his favor that December, finding that editors at the paper had known about the wrongdoing, and Mirror Group agreed the following year to pay further substantial damages to settle the rest of his claims. He also reached a settlement with the publisher of The Sun in early 2025, which included an apology for what was described as serious intrusion into his life. Notably, The Sun's parent company also owns The Times, and The Telegraph has been one of the few major national newspaper groups Harry has not taken legal action against. The Associated Newspapers case itself had a long and winding road even before this July's final verdict. Harry initially sued the publisher for libel back in 2022 over a Mail on Sunday article that alleged he had tried to keep secret a separate legal fight over his police protection, and that his aides had then tried to spin the story favorably. A judge ruled that article defamatory in 2023, clearing the way for that specific libel claim to proceed toward trial. Separately, the broader unlawful information gathering case, covering claims of phone hacking, tapping landlines, burglary, and even hidden microphones, had also survived an attempt by Associated Newspapers to have it thrown out entirely, A judge ruled in 2023 that the publisher had failed to deliver what the BBC described as a knockout blow to the claims. Actor and press reform campaigner Hugh Grant, who was involved with the accountability group Hacked Off, publicly welcomed that earlier procedural win at the time as a step toward greater transparency about tabloid practices. All of that make this July's dismissal a genuinely significant reversal. A case that had cleared several legal hurdles over multiple years ultimately failed at the final, decisive stage, when the claimants had to actually prove their allegations rather than simply argue they were plausible. That if the court case was the substantive story of the week, what happened around Harry's actual visit to the UK played out almost like a farce, and multiple outlets covered the whiplash in real time. Harry traveled to London in early July, timed around both the court verdict and a series of charity engagements, including an Invictus Games Foundation event at Chatham House marking 1 year to go before the Invictus Games Birmingham 2027. He made the trip without Meghan and their children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. What made headlines wasn't just the trip itself, but the confusion over where Harry would actually be staying. According to a statement from Harry's representative obtained by People, the representative confirmed he was aware of multiple briefings from Buckingham Palace suggesting the Duke had not accepted an offer of accommodation at a royal residence. The statement went on to explain that after RAVEC, the government committee that determines royal protection arrange. The Daily Beast reporting laid out the sequence of events in more granular detail. On a Monday morning, Harry's team told media outlets, including the BBC, that he had accepted an offer to stay at Buckingham Palace. Minutes later, the palace intervened and said the offer had actually been withdrawn on the grounds that Harry's acceptance had come too late for logistics to be arranged. Buckingham Palace's position was that the offer had, in fact, been declined by Harry on the preceding Saturday morning and was only accepted afterward, by which point it was too late to accommodate him. Harry's side saw it differently, with his spokesperson noting in a statement that the palace had reportedly been aware of the pending court judgment against Harry since the prior Thursday, raising questions about the real timing and reasoning behind the withdrawal. The Daily Caller's coverage added a further wrinkle from The Guardian's reporting. Palace officials reportedly felt there wasn't enough time to arrange proper staffing once everything was finalized, and said they had made efforts to accommodate Harry, but that the minimum required notice hadn't been met. The palace reportedly extended an offer for Harry to use the accommodation on a future visit instead. Whatever the true sequence of internal communications was, the optics were rough. A brief moment that looked like a genuine olive branch between Harry and the royal family collapsed within roughly 15 minutes, according to reporting from the Daily Caller, back into the same pattern of public tension that has defined the relationship for years. The long-running security battle. None of this happened in a vacuum. The Buckingham Palace mix-up sits on top of a security dispute that has been running since 2020, when Harry and Meghan stepped back as senior working royals and lost their publicly funded UK police protection. Harry has spent years in and out of court trying to get that protection reinstated, arguing that he and his family cannot safely visit the UK without it, and that he would even be willing to pay for it personally. That legal fight has had its own long history of ups and downs, stretching back further than most people probably realize. Harry first brought the case in September 2021, challenging a 2020 decision by RAVEC, formerly the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, operating on behalf of the Home Office, that his security would be assessed on a case-by-case basis rather than guaranteed, once he stepped back from being a working royal. In July 2022, a High Court judge granted Harry permission to challenge that decision, allowing at least part of his case for judicial review to move forward, with the judge noting at the time that a finding of arguable was still a considerable distance from a finding that the case would ultimately succeed. Progress continued in fits and starts over the following years. But in February 2024, Harry lost his initial case against RAVEC's decision to downgrade his protection. He appealed, and in May 2025 that appeal was also dismissed, with Judge Sir Geoffrey Vose noting that 2 other judges agreed with his assessment of the case. Part of the court's reasoning centered on the specific structure of the arrangement Harry had been offered, rather than being denied protection outright. He was, in the court's characterization, effectively moving in and out of a defined cohort of people who receive protection, depending on the situation, a nuance that mattered legally even if it didn't change the practical difficulty Harry described facing on the ground. Around that time, Buckingham Palace issued a notably terse response to the outcome, with a spokesperson stating that all of the issues had been examined repeatedly and meticulously by the courts, with the same conclusion reached each time. Harry gave a candid interview around that same period in which he described the emotional toll of the ongoing dispute, reportedly saying he couldn't currently picture a scenario where he'd feel comfortable bringing his wife and children back to the UK without guaranteed protection. He's also spoken about how the security fight has affected his relationship with his father, alleging in that interview that King Charles wouldn't speak with him because of it. Whether or not that specific claim is fully accurate is genuinely hard for an outside observer to verify. It's Harry's characterization of a private relationship, but it is, at minimum, an on-the-record statement from Harry himself, not third-party speculation, that it's genuinely difficult to overstate how strained the relationship between Harry and the rest of the royal family has become. And multiple outlets have reported on specific, verifiable signs of that distance rather than vague insinuation. Fox News reporting from around the time of the July court case noted that Prince William was said to not be on speaking terms with his younger brother, and that it remained unclear whether Harry would meet with his father, King Charles, during the trip, or whether the rest of his family would join him. That's a meaningfully different kind of claim than a secret has been revealed. It sourced specific reporting about an observable state of affairs, limited or absent contact, rather than an invented private event. There have been occasional, narrow signs of a thaw. Reporting has indicated that after arriving in the UK on a separate occasion, Harry and Meghan's children met their grandfather King Charles for the first time in 4 years, a specific, reportedly confirmed event, distinct from the kind of unverifiable secret meeting claims that circulate in less careful coverage. Still, broader reconciliation between Harry and the family, and particularly between Harry and William, does not appear to have materialized in any substantial way based on current reporting. This estrangement exists against the backdrop of another major, entirely separate royal story this year: the arrest of Harry's uncle, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, in February 2026, on his 66th birthday, in connection with allegations that he shared classified information with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein during Andrew's time serving as a UK trade envoy between 2001 and 2011. Andrew has continued to deny any wrongdoing. Reporting from InStyle at the time noted that Harry made a surprise video appearance the day after his uncle's arrest, speaking from his home in Montecito on behalf of his Well Child Patronage, a charity he has supported for 18 years. A source close to Harry described him as long frustrated by comparisons drawn between himself and Andrew, given the very different nature of their public records. One insider was quoted saying that Harry served his country, did the job well, and never engaged in misconduct, yet still lost his own security and housing arrangements, while Andrew was said to have been protected for years despite the separate allegations against him. The same source described the situation as leaving what they called a stain on the entire family. It's a useful reminder that not every royal family news story this year is centered on Harry directly, even when his name gets pulled into the surrounding conversation, and that the family's wider reputational pressures extend well beyond his own disputes with the press and the palace. But it's worth remembering what Harry's July trip was actually supposed to be about in the first place, since the court ruling and the palace mix-up tended to overshadow the underlying purpose of the visit. The trip was built around Invictus Games Foundation engagements, including the Conversation, from policy to practice event at Chatham House in central London, part of a broader one-year to-go celebration ahead of the Invictus Games Birmingham 2027. The Invictus Games, which Harry founded in 2014, brings together wounded, injured, and sick service members and veterans through adaptive sport, and it remains one of the causes most closely associated with his public identity outside the royal family framework entirely. Fox News reporting from around the visit described Harry as having appeared visibly emotional over the security situation during his time in the UK, with a royal commentator telling the outlet that her understanding was that Harry had been deeply affected by the ordeal. Whatever one makes of second-hand characterizations of someone's emotional state, the underlying facts, that Harry traveled to the UK for a substantive charity commitment tied to a cause he built from scratch, while simultaneously navigating a courtroom loss and a security dispute that determined whether his own wife and children could safely join him, are well documented and, frankly, dramatic enough without embellishment. Life in Montecito, what's actually been reported. On the more personal side, reporting on Harry and Meghan's day-to-day life in California has, for the most part, been fairly mundane compared to the courtroom drama, which is itself worth noting, since it undercuts the idea that there's some enormous hidden secret waiting to be revealed. Meghan relaunched her Instagram account at the start of 2025 and has continued sharing glimpses of family life since, including photos from a UK summer holiday with Archie and Lilibet. Hello. Magazine's ongoing coverage has also reported that television personality Martha Stewart said she recently attended a dinner party with Meghan in California, and that Archie and Lilibet are believed to attend schools near the family's home in Montecito. None of this is scandalous. It's the kind of low-key lifestyle reporting that exists for virtually every prominent public figure, and it stands in pretty stark contrast to headlines promising hidden relationships or explosive reveals. What might come next? Reported, not revealed. Some outlets have floated the possibility of a future thaw, and it's worth including that reporting here precisely because it illustrates the difference between soft speculation and invented reveals. Hello. Magazine's ongoing royal coverage has reported that King Charles is expected to extend some kind of gesture toward his son when Harry is next expected back in the UK, and separately that a royal commentator has suggested the King and his heir, Prince William, will need to find a way to work together despite the ongoing tension with Harry. Neither of these is presented as confirmed fact by the outlets reporting it. They are framed explicitly as expectations, forecasts, and commentary about where things might be headed, attributed to named sources or clearly identified as expert opinion rather than asserted as settled truth. That's the honest way to handle uncertainty about the future. Say what is known, say who is speculating about what might happen next, and don't blur the two together. Whether any actual reconciliation materializes is something only time, and further verifiable reporting, will show. What this summer actually tells us. Put together, the verifiable events of this summer paint a picture that's genuinely more interesting, in its own way, than manufactured tabloid speculation. A prince who has spent years and tens of millions of pounds fighting the British press in court, with mixed results. A security dispute with the UK government that has now run for half a decade with no full resolution in sight, a fraught, still unhealed relationship with his brother and, to a lesser and more ambiguous extent, his father, and a family life in California that, by most available reporting, looks fairly ordinary. None of that required an unnamed commentator claiming to have uncovered a secret. It required court transcripts, official statements from representatives on both sides, and reporters who were present at the actual events. That last point is worth sitting with for a moment. Every claim in this rundown is attributable to a specific, named outlet, and in most cases to on-the-record statements from Harry's representatives, Buckingham Palace, court documents, or associated newspapers itself. That's a meaningfully different information environment than one built on a commentator's confident guess about somebody's private romantic life. It doesn't mean every outlet always gets every detail right, or that Harry's account of events and the palace's account always agree. Clearly, in the Buckingham Palace invitation saga, they didn't. But the disagreement itself was reported transparently, with both sides' statements laid out, rather than one version being presented as the hidden truth finally exposed. If there's a lesson in comparing this kind of coverage to the tabloid biggest secret revealed genre, it's this real, well-sourced reporting about P.